I can't say once upon a time for this story because it's actually set in the future. So it takes place in the future, and I'm not sure what you say before a story that takes place in the future. Maybe we could say one day that's yet to be.
Yeah.
The world was in terrible trouble.
Oh my God.
Yeah. There was pollution everywhere. People had been driving their cars too much. The factories were pumping black smoke into the air, and the earth itself was getting very sick. Who knows what pollution is? What's pollution? What's pollution? Smoky, and there's, yeah, anyone else?
Fire.
Gas, some gases can be pollution, or it could be some, say we made something and then we had loads of
Fire.
yucky kind of glue left over, and we're like, we don't use this glue. If we poured it in the pond, we would be polluting the pond, and it might poison the frogs in the pond. So pollution can be in water, or it can be in air. And in this story, in the future, the pollution's got so bad that the earth is very sick, and what's happening is the earth is getting hotter, and it's melting the ice at the ice caps, the North Pole and the South Pole, and the sea levels are rising and coming up and up and up, and lots of people are losing their homes because the sea's getting higher, and lots of animals are losing their homes because the sea's getting higher. Now while this is going on, there lives a man, and this man's name is Noah. And Noah has the good fortune to live on the top of the hill, so the sea hasn't yet gobbled up his house. And I'll tell you something very important about Noah. Noah is lovely. He's such a lovely man. What is it to be lovely? How can you be lovely? What are lovely people like? Yes.
You are in love with someone?
Yeah, maybe. But name something that they would do that might be lovely.
Grow flowers.
Grow flowers, yeah. Actually, funnily enough, Noah did do that. He was a keen gardener, so he gardened. What would you do if you were lovely?
Help people and have manners.
Help people and have good manners. That's a good example. Be kind to people. Be kind to people. And Noah is exactly that, and he knew how to have fun, which is another very important ingredient in a lovely person. And I know you're all lovely, so you'll agree with me. He knew how to have fun as well. He loved going out and taking long walks with his dogs, and he was a granddad, and he was also a gardener, and he used to, every afternoon, he would sit in his shed, and his grandson, who was actually in year 2, just like you, would come into the shed, and together they would pretend it was a spaceship. And Noah, the granddad, would say, "Are you ready for takeoff?" And Zach, his grandson, would say, "I'm ready for takeoff."
I'm not.
And
what's that actually happen?
And they would go T-5, T-4, T-3, T-2, T-1, take off! And they would pretend they were flying a spaceship.
Yeah, we're superheroes. Beep, 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 beep.
Yeah, exactly. And they'd have a great time. One day, Noah was out walking his dogs. And something very out of the ordinary happened. God came down and spoke to Noah. Now, when God comes down and speaks to someone, he doesn't come down and talk to you like I'm talking to you now.
Yeah,
because he's
God
got, if you have something to
person.
say, please use your hand. Because otherwise we'll be talking at the same time and we'll be like, who's telling the story? I don't understand. Are you telling it? Am I telling it? I'm getting confused. We can't have that. So if you have something to say, put your hand up and then we take turns, okay? God comes down. When he comes down, he can speak through the trees and through the water and the earth and through the bees and the bugs. Just like this. This might be a way that God can speak. And Noah could just understand. Unfortunately, I can't speak like God, so I'm going to have to just say it in words. Hello, Noah, said God. Woo! Who's saying that? It is I, God. Noah was most surprised. God, Why are you speaking to me? Noah, I'm afraid I've decided it is you that should bear the task of saving the humans and the animals, because you haven't taken care of your world and all the pollution has built up, and soon all the animals that live on land will die because the sea will swallow them up. I have decided it is you that shall save all the living things of earth, apart from the fishes of the sea, because they'll be okay. Noah was shocked. He sat down with his bum on the grass and he couldn't seem to take it all in. God said to him, "Don't worry, I have a plan for you and I'm going to make it very, very easy. I'll tell you exactly what to do. Noah, I've chosen you because you're such a lovely man, and your children are lovely and your grandchildren are lovely, and I think it should be you who should take the animals of the earth to find somewhere new to live." He explained to Noah that Noah was going to have to build a great spaceship, for soon the earth would be covered in water and there'd be nowhere for the animals that live on the land to live. And so he'd have to build a spaceship and go and find a new planet for them to live on. The spaceship would have to be 40 miles long. 40 miles is a very long way. Do you ever go to the beach?
Yeah.
Yeah? The beach is probably from here. No, well, it depends what beach you go to. But Plymouth is about 40 miles, yeah? You ever been to Plymouth?
Yeah.
Yeah? Imagine a drive to Plymouth. That, if you drove all that way, you'd be going along the spaceship and you'd only just get to the end of it. If one end was here, the other end would be at Plymouth. It was that big. Because Noah's mission was to take 2 of every animal on the earth and put them in his spaceship. And there are so many animals in the earth. There are thousands of species of every type of animal. Why do you think God asked Noah to have a boy and a girl of each animal? Why a boy and a girl? Yes.
Because they love each other. They love each other. And they have babies.
Because they can have babies together. And if you have a boy and a girl, then they can have babies and they can keep reproducing and reproducing, and so they can, if you just had one boy, it would die, and then say you had a boy butterfly, when the boy butterfly died, the butterflies would be over. But if you have a boy and a girl, you can have baby butterflies and then more babies and more babies and more babies. So he had to collect a boy and a girl of every species on Earth. And he had to build this giant spaceship. And he wasn't best pleased because he liked his quiet life and his garden and his games with his grandson Zach. But God had spoken to him and he took on his mission. He set his grandchildren building the spaceship, and him and his sons and daughters went out across the world and collected 2 of every kind of creature. 2 gorillas, 2 bats, but not just 2 bats because there's loads of species of bats. So 2 vampire bats, 2 fruit bats, 2 English bats, 2 French bats, all the different kinds of bats. There are thousands of species of dragonfly alone. They had to catch 2 of each. All the different kinds of plants, all the different kinds of cats, all the different kinds of dogs, 2 of each. Yes.
What happens if it was if the girl had the wrong boy and the boy had the wrong girl?
That is a very, very good question. And do you know what Noah and his children had to do when they were collecting these animals? They had to make sure they liked each other. Because if they didn't like each other, then there would be no babies and it would all be for nothing. So they had to make sure they had compatible pairs, which means they liked each other and they would get on well. Eventually, and it took them a very long time, they had all the animals they needed, and they drove back, hands down for the moment, and they drove back to the hill where the spaceship was being built, and they saw it nearly finished. The grandchildren had done a marvellous job on this giant spaceship. They put the last pieces on and they turned on the power, and all the lights in the spaceship turned on, and they started the long task of putting the animals in the different cages and putting the butterflies in the different butterfly enclosures, and they're putting the every kind of animal in its special place. You know, when you go to the zoo and you see the lizards and they're in those glass tanks, they put them all in the right places and gave them all their right kind of food. And they had just finished when the storm started raging, and the sea was rising up and up and up and up the sides of the hill, and Noah and his children and grandchildren ran onto the spaceship just in time, and the waves were lapping the feet of the spaceship. And Noah got into the control seat, and he had his grandson by his side, and his grandson Zach looked up, and this time they weren't pretending, it was for real. And Noah's wife cried tears for all the animals that were left and that would die, and all the people that were left and that would die. But there was nothing they could do because the spaceship was full, and they had their mission from God. And Noah pulled the stick like this, and the spaceship rocked and heaved up into the air, and the waves crashed against it, trying to suck it back down, but it took off, and all the animals on the ship made their noises. The elephants, what noises do elephants make? They go and the cats meowed, and the dogs howled, and the lions roared. And soon they were in space, and everything was still and quiet. The grandchildren went about feeding the animals and giving them names, and Noah began to look for a safe place for them all to live. First, he tried Mercury, which is the closest planet to the sun, but it was too hot, so they moved on. Next planet is Venus, and they went down and they tried that, but it was too smoky and horrible, so they moved on. Earth is the next planet, but that they had already had so much pollution from all the people driving about and using the factories and making too much rubbish that it was all covered in ocean, and they couldn't live there. The next planet is Mars, and they went down, and the problem there was it was too dry. There was no water there, so they couldn't live, because you need water to live. The next planet was Jupiter. Well done, you were saying it before me. Jupiter, the big gassy giant. They thought this might be a good choice, but as they got closer, they saw that it was covered in storms, lightning and thunder, and that big red spot that you can see on Jupiter was just one giant storm, swirling and swirling. So they went on. The next planet is Saturn, and as they flew closer, the spaceship started to be hit by little bits of ice and rock. That was Saturn's rings, which are made up of tiny pieces of ice and rock. They couldn't get close to the planet, so they flew off to the next one, which is Uranus. Flew into Uranus, and they thought, this seems okay, it was nice and blue, and they kept flying, they kept flying. They came out the other side. There was no land on Uranus. It's just made up of gas, like air is a gas, or steam is a gas. There's actually nothing, there's nowhere for them to walk around, they couldn't live there. Neptune is the next planet. The same thing, it was only gas. The last planet in our solar system was Pluto. And although it seemed a very nice place to live, it was too small. Couldn't fit all the animals from Earth on it. Noah shook his head and said, we're going to have to look further away. And he pumped up the spaceship to its top speed, and they jetted off into space. For a long time they searched and searched. They had these two space probes that would whiz about around the spaceship looking for planets that might be suitable to live on. Has anyone ever seen the film WALL-E? Did you see the film about robots, WALL-E?
Yeah.
Do you know Eva in that story?
I do.
The white robot?
Yeah.
That's what Noah had. They were his space probes. And you know, in that movie, she's looking for something alive, a plant. She finds the plant and she puts it inside her and she takes it home. you remember that?
Yeah.
That's exactly what these space probes were looking for. They were looking for something alive, because that would show that a planet was okay to live on. And after years and years of searching, 40 years of searching, finally one of the space probes came back, and Noah was sat there, his great beard had grown right down to the ground, and he saw the space probe come in. He said, "What have you got for me this time?" "A rock, a bit of sand." The space probe bleeped excitedly, and from inside her hatch she brought out a branch with purple leaves on it.
And it might die.
Noah knew that she had found a place that was suitable for life, somewhere where they could live. He turned the spaceship round and followed the space probe as she led him back to the planet she had found. They landed and they found it, a beautiful planet with purple plants and a bright green sky and white oceans. And all the animals were let out of their cages to stretch and run around for the first time in 40 years. And the people made their houses, and the bats found the caves, and the lions found the great plains, and all the animals and all Noah's family started again, and they lived happily ever after.